She was saying, our mama don't we Gloria. I mean, Gloria don't our mama because our mama got a job.
But here's where the conversation really starts to sharpen, because when you put all the pieces on the table, it becomes clear why public opinion began to lean the way it did. Once the 2015 incident resurfaced, where Victoria was allegedly accused of pulling a gun on GloRilla when she was only 16 years old, the entire narrative shifted. That single detail reframed everything people thought they understood. Suddenly, GloRilla's distance didn't look like arrogance or celebrity neglect. It looked like survival. When you add that allegation to the pile, alongside claims of theft, police involvement, family setups, and repeated betrayals, the idea that GloRilla drew firm boundaries starts to feel less like abandonment and more like self-preservation. Multiple siblings stepped forward independently, all telling the same story, all backing GloRilla's version of events. Not vague support either. Specific examples, timelines, receipts, and first-hand accounts. That consistency mattered. In situations like this, patterns speak louder than emotions. And then there was the mother's role in all of it. Her messages, shown publicly, expressed gratitude and appreciation for GloRilla's support. Those texts alone dismantled the idea that the family had been completely left behind. They didn't read like someone being neglected, they read like someone who felt seen and helped. That carried weight, because if anyone had reason to speak up, it was her. Still, the internet couldn't agree. A portion of people sympathized deeply with Victoria, arguing that watching a sibling escape poverty while you remain stuck can break something inside you. That feeling of being left behind is real, raw, and deeply human. Many saw this situation as a reflection of a bigger issue: how success can fracture families, especially in communities where making it out comes with unspoken obligations. But for most observers, sympathy hit a wall once Tory Lanez entered the picture. Accepting money from someone convicted of shooting GloRilla's close friend and collaborator felt like a line crossed too far. That moment solidified what many already suspected: this wasn't just about healing family wounds. It was about attention, leverage, and cash. By this point, the story had stopped being morally gray for a lot of people. Victoria's actions, taken together, made it increasingly difficult to frame her as simply a hurt sister asking for fairness. The optics were bad, the timing worse, and the contradictions impossible to ignore. What started as a conversation about family loyalty turned into a case study on boundaries, entitlement, and the cost of airing private pain in public. And once the internet decides, it rarely revisits its verdict.
You will sit here, see your sibling, we all struggling, and you still not do nothing. Because the struggle was so hard. Like, it was so, I'm talking about like it was, bruh, there's my sister, there ain't no clout chasing. We got the same mama, same daddy. There's not no clout chasing.
Once Victoria Woods took the story public, the response from the rest of the family was swift and far from unified. What had been a private family tension turned into a fractured public debate almost overnight. As clips from TMZ Live circulated across social media, other relatives began speaking out, making it clear that Victoria's version of events was not universally accepted within the Woods family. Several family members pushed back against the framing that GloRilla had abandoned everyone she came up with. According to them, the situation was far more complicated than a single request for $2,500. They suggested that financial help had been provided in the past, quietly and without fanfare, long before the issue ever reached the internet. What angered them most wasn't just the accusation itself, it was the decision to weaponize it publicly. From their perspective, Victoria crossing that line changed everything. Family disputes, they argued, should stay within the family. Once TMZ became involved, the conflict was no longer about help or hardship. It was about reputation, control of the narrative, and public sympathy. Some relatives felt that Victoria's appearance made it seem as if GloRilla was heartless or selfish, an image they strongly rejected. This is where the story began to fracture into multiple competing truths. On one side, Victoria maintained that any previous assistance was inconsistent, conditional, or insufficient. She implied that promises had been made and broken, that help came only when convenient, and that communication eventually stopped altogether. To her, going public was not betrayal, it was desperation. She framed herself as someone who had exhausted every private option. On the other side, family members close to GloRilla hinted that boundaries had become necessary. Fame changes the math of relationships. Once money enters the equation, requests don't stop at one time or one amount. They multiply. Some relatives suggested that GloRilla had learned the hard way that financial support often leads to expectations without end. Helping one person opens the door for 10 more, and refusing even once can spark resentment that never fades. Online, the audience quickly split into camps. One group saw Victoria as the voice of the forgotten, the sibling left behind while the star ascended. They argued that no one rises alone and that cutting off family, especially over a relatively small amount of money, felt cruel and unnecessary. Others were far less sympathetic. They questioned why Victoria chose humiliation over resolution, asking why she didn't protect her sister's image if her intentions were truly rooted in love. The timing again played a crucial role. GloRilla's career depended heavily on public perception. In an industry that closely monitors controversy, even family drama can be risky. Every viral clip, every reaction video, every comment thread added pressure. Silence, while often strategic, began to feel louder than any response. Yet GloRilla did not immediately address the accusations. That absence became its own storyline. Supporters interpreted her silence as restraint and professionalism. Critics saw it as avoidance. And Victoria, watching the discourse spiral, seemed emboldened rather than deterred. Each passing day without a response reinforced her belief that going public was the only way to be heard.
She was saying, our mama don't with Gloria. Gloria don't our mama because our mama got a job. Like, having a job is a bad thing. Then folks saying, GloRilla mama having a job is crazy. What's wrong with having a job?
As the days passed with no confirmed sightings or breakthroughs, the emotional weight of Nathan Murray Smith's disappearance continued to deepen. What began as a missing person alert slowly transformed into a collective moment of unease, not only for his family, but for anyone familiar with the patterns of modern hip-hop culture. The silence surrounding his whereabouts became louder than any rumor, and in that silence, speculation multiplied. Yet law enforcement and family representatives remained consistent in their message. This was not a criminal case driven by violence or retaliation, but a situation rooted in concern for Nathan's well-being. Still, the internet rarely waits for facts to mature. Online commentary moved faster than official updates, filling gaps with assumptions shaped by past tragedies in the music industry. In this digital environment, empathy often competes with entertainment, and fear spreads more easily than restraint. Nathan's disappearance became content, dissected frame by frame, stripped of humanity, and repackaged into theories that said more about collective anxiety than about the young man himself. What was often lost in these discussions was Nathan's individuality. He was not merely Lil Jon's son. He was an adult with his own creative identity, ambitions, and personal struggles that the public was never entitled to fully understand. Friends and collaborators described him as grounded, focused, and passionate about music. Those closest to him emphasized his kindness and his deep connection to family. Reducing him to a symbol of inherited danger erased the reality of who he actually was. This reduction is part of a broader cultural problem. Hip-hop, born from storytelling and survival, has increasingly normalized escalation. Over time, rivalry shifted from lyrical competition to character assassination, and eventually to the involvement of families. The audience learned to expect cruelty, and artists learned that shock often brings attention. In that environment, even innocence can feel temporary, as if proximity to fame alone invites threat. Yet Nathan's case stands apart precisely because it resists that narrative. There is no trail of threats, no warnings, no claims of responsibility, no evidence of targeting. Authorities have repeatedly emphasized caution, urging the public not to jump to conclusions. Mental health advocates have echoed this stance, reminding audiences that disappearances are often complex and deeply personal, especially when emotional distress is involved. To frame every absence as an act of violence is not only inaccurate but harmful. For Lil Jon, the ordeal cuts through every public persona he has ever worn. Beyond the iconic ad-libs and global hits stands a father-facing, unimaginable uncertainty. Fame offers no insulation from that pain. If anything, it magnifies it, placing private suffering under public scrutiny. Every interview clip, every past quote, every family moment becomes material for analysis, regardless of consent or consequence. The Boss Talk TV host captured this reality in his closing remarks by shifting the focus away from theories and back toward humanity. He spoke not as a commentator chasing views, but as a parent who understood the terror of not knowing. His words served as a reminder that behind every trending topic is a real family living through real fear. Part 6 of this story does not offer resolution, because real life rarely does on schedule. What it offers instead is perspective. This is not a cautionary tale about beefs gone wrong or rivalries resurfacing. It is a mirror held up to a culture that too often expects tragedy before it extends compassion. Nathan Murray Smith's disappearance should prompt care, patience, and respect, not speculation fueled by history's worst moments. Until answers emerge, the most responsible response is restraint. To allow space for healing. To remember that a missing person is not a plot twist, but a human being. And to recognize that sometimes, the hardest stories are not the ones filled with conflict, but the ones defined by absence, waiting, and hope that refuses to disappear.
You gotta scream for your beans! But why am I the topic? You supposed to be getting that bill to bear looking at out of jail. Why are you worried about what the fuck Toya talking about? Now I'm starting to see what your siblings talking about. Oh, you need to go get a reduction while you get tummy tucks. How much was your tummy tuck? Because I need one too. I need one too. How much is your, help a dog. We both, how much was your tummy tuck? I need one. Suge still in jail. You ain't made bail. But you want to talk about me.
As public attention continued to linger on Nathan Murray Smith's disappearance, another layer of the story quietly emerged: the way collective memory shapes fear. Hip-hop history is heavy with examples of conflict escalating beyond music, and that legacy has trained audiences to search for villains even when none are present. In Nathan's case, that instinct became especially pronounced because of his lineage. Carrying a famous last name in an industry shaped by rivalry often means inheriting anxieties that have nothing to do with personal actions. This inherited tension is subtle but powerful. It lives in comment sections, in reaction videos, in the language people use when discussing cases like this. Words such as ops or retaliation surface almost automatically, even when officials and family members clearly state that there is no evidence pointing in that direction. These assumptions are not rooted in facts about Nathan's life, but in a long history of artists whose conflicts spilled into real-world consequences. The culture remembers those moments, and memory fuels expectation. Yet expectation should never replace reality. By all credible accounts, Nathan lived outside that framework of hostility. He was known as a low-key creative, someone more interested in refining his craft than engaging in drama. His social media presence reflected stability rather than turmoil. Friends described him as thoughtful and focused, not reckless or volatile. Nothing in his public or private life suggested involvement in disputes that could place him in danger. The danger, instead, lies in how narratives are constructed. When a disappearance occurs, the rush to explain it can overshadow the person at its center. Nathan becomes a symbol rather than a son, a brother, a collaborator, a friend. This transformation happens quickly, especially when fame is nearby. People begin projecting past stories onto the present one, as if history must repeat itself. That projection does not help find answers. It only deepens confusion and pain. Media platforms carry a particular responsibility here. While awareness is crucial, tone matters. Sensational framing can distort understanding, turning concern into fear and speculation into perceived truth. Boss Talk TV's coverage walked a careful line, balancing urgency with restraint. The hosts emphasized verified information and repeatedly discouraged unfounded theories. That approach stood in contrast to the broader online ecosystem, where speed often outweighs accuracy. For Lil Jon and his family, this environment creates a second burden alongside the primary one. Not only must they endure the absence of their son, but they must also watch strangers dissect his life, attach motives where none exist, and debate scenarios that authorities have explicitly ruled out. Privacy becomes nearly impossible, even when it is respectfully requested. Grief and uncertainty are forced into the open, analyzed by people far removed from the reality of the situation. Part 7 of the story is about that tension between memory and truth. Hip-hop's past informs how we interpret the present, but it should not imprison it. Every case deserves to be understood on its own terms, guided by facts rather than fear. Nathan Murray Smith is not a chapter in someone else's feud, nor a continuation of old rivalries. He is an individual whose absence demands compassion, patience, and clarity. Until there are concrete updates, the most meaningful response remains collective restraint. Allowing law enforcement to do their work. Allowing the family space to breathe. And allowing Nathan to be seen not as an extension of his father's legacy, but as a human being whose life and safety matter in their own right.
I don't think it's gonna be for game. It went too far. It went too far. I went too far. I went on social media and it went too far for her for how long it took. Cause now I feel like you doing it cause you embarrassed.
Is it just words? That words that make it too far gone?
I went against my sister on TMZ. It ain't no coming back from it. And I'm prepared to not come back.
Did worse though.
It ain't no comeback. And even if I would be scared to go around her, even if it was coming, because I think you got something up your sleeve. It ain't no comeback.
As the debate intensified online, GloRilla's silence became the most scrutinized element of the entire situation. In modern celebrity culture, silence is rarely interpreted as neutrality. Instead, it is treated as a statement in itself, one that audiences rush to decode, analyze, and judge. Every hour without a response fueled speculation, and every viral clip of Victoria Woods gained more traction in the absence of a counter-narrative. Industry insiders were quick to point out that GloRilla's lack of response was not accidental. For an artist at her stage of success, every public statement is a calculated risk. Respond too quickly, and emotions can override clarity. Respond too late, and the narrative may already be cemented. In this case, GloRilla appeared to choose restraint, likely advised by management and legal counsel to avoid escalating a family dispute into a full-scale media spectacle. But restraint has a price. While GloRilla remained quiet, public sympathy shifted unpredictably. Some fans defended her fiercely, arguing that no one is entitled to another person's money simply because they share blood. Others saw her silence as cold and dismissive, interpreting it as evidence that success had distanced her from her roots. In the court of public opinion, silence rarely benefits both sides equally. Behind the scenes, the situation was reportedly far more complex than what appeared on camera. People close to GloRilla suggested that the relationship with Victoria had been strained long before the TMZ appearance. Boundaries had been discussed privately. Financial expectations had become a recurring source of tension. What the public saw as a sudden refusal was, according to these accounts, the culmination of years of unresolved conflict. This highlights a broader reality many artists face once fame arrives. Success does not just elevate the individual, it reshapes every personal relationship around them. Family members who once saw you as an equal may now see you as a resource. Requests become routine. Gratitude becomes expectation. And the line between help and dependency grows dangerously thin. Victoria, meanwhile, continued to frame her actions as a last resort. From her perspective, the silence confirmed what she already believed, that she no longer mattered unless she made noise. She positioned herself as someone pushed to the margins, ignored until the story went public. Whether intentional or not, her narrative tapped into a familiar emotional chord, the fear of being left behind while someone you love moves on without you. Social media amplified every contradiction. Clips were taken out of context. Old photos were reinterpreted. Past interviews were resurfaced and analyzed for hidden meaning. What may have started as a private disagreement became a symbol of something much larger, the uncomfortable intersection of family loyalty and financial power. When GloRilla finally addressed the situation indirectly, she did so carefully, without names or accusations. Her message focused on boundaries, mental health, and the importance of protecting one's peace. To supporters, this was maturity. To critics, it felt evasive. But what was clear is that she refused to turn the conflict into a public back-and-forth. That refusal marked a turning point. The story began to lose momentum, not because it was resolved, but because there was no longer fresh fuel to keep it burning. Without direct confrontation, the internet slowly moved on, as it always does. Yet the consequences remained. Families don't reset as easily as timelines do. Even when the headlines fade, the damage lingers. Trust erodes quietly. Conversations become guarded. And the knowledge that a private pain was once shared with millions cannot be undone. By the end of this phase, one truth stood out above all others. Fame does not create family conflict, but it magnifies it. And once those conflicts become content, there are no real winners, only scars that last far longer than the viral moment itself.
I'm mad at me right now.
She mad with you?
She mad. She's very upset.
Really? So she ain't talking to you at all? Damn.
Not at all. She did say a few things, but she mad. I gotta let her calm down a little bit. I think she hot about that FedEx.
GloRilla's family drama officially crossed the point of no return the moment her brother broke his silence and leaked information that nobody was supposed to see. What started as quiet tension behind closed doors exploded into a public meltdown filled with leaked receipts, accusations of betrayal, allegations involving firearms, hidden money trails, and even claims of cash being sent from behind prison walls. This wasn't just another celebrity family disagreement. This was a full-blown internal war that exposed everything the industry, the family, and the internet had ignored or buried for years. From the outside looking in, people might assume this is just another case of relatives arguing over money once fame enters the picture. But that assumption doesn't even come close to capturing the scale of what actually unfolded. This situation wasn't a quick social media argument that fades after a few posts. According to those involved, this conflict had been building quietly for nearly 4 years. Old resentment, unresolved trauma, financial expectations, and personal betrayals were all simmering under the surface. When it finally boiled over, it didn't just spill into the public eye, it detonated. By the time everything hit the internet, both sides came armed. Screenshots, allegations, personal history, legal documents. Nobody stayed quiet, and nobody backed down. What made the situation even more chaotic was that each side claimed they were telling the real truth, and both had evidence to support their version of events. As the receipts piled up, it became clear that this wasn't a clean-cut story with an obvious villain. Instead, it was layered, uncomfortable, and far messier than anyone expected. The moment that changed everything happened on February 4th, 2026. That was the day Victoria Woods, known online as Scarface Woods, decided she was done staying silent. Victoria is GloRilla's older sister, and according to her, she had spent years watching from the sidelines while resentment ate her alive. In her eyes, she had endured 4 long years of watching her younger sister, born Gloria Hallelujah Woods, rise from the same Memphis struggle they shared into a multi-million-dollar rap superstar. Victoria claimed she watched GloRilla stack success after success, hit songs, massive endorsement deals, sold-out tours, and collaborations with some of the biggest names in hip-hop. Meanwhile, according to Victoria, the family back home was still stuck in survival mode. She painted a picture of relatives still drowning in bills, still scraping by, still living paycheck to paycheck, while GloRilla lived a completely different reality. That frustration finally exploded when Victoria went live on Facebook. What followed was raw, emotional, and completely unfiltered. She didn't sugarcoat anything. She accused GloRilla of abandoning the very family that struggled alongside her before fame. According to Victoria, their mother, who has worked at FedEx for over 2 decades, was still grinding every single day, still paying nearly $2,400 a month in rent, despite having a daughter worth millions. Victoria went even further, claiming she personally had to pay $18,000 out of her own pocket just to keep a roof over the family's head. She alleged that GloRilla had changed her phone number, blocked relatives from contacting her, and completely ghosted the people who were once in the trenches with her. In Victoria's telling, this wasn't about jealousy, it was about betrayal. She framed GloRilla as someone who made it out and slammed the door shut behind her. The internet immediately latched onto the story. Clips spread fast. Blogs reposted her words. Comment sections exploded with debates about loyalty, family responsibility, and whether success comes with an obligation to bring everyone with you. At that moment, Victoria positioned herself as the truth teller, the overlooked sibling finally exposing what fame had done to her family. But what nobody knew yet was that this was only the opening chapter. Because once Victoria spoke, the rest of the family and the industry was about to respond. And when they did, the narrative would fracture in ways no one saw coming.
Because the struggle was so hard. It was so, I'm talking about like it was, bruh, a man, you see a red running through the hallway. Pregnant one. You already sleeping on the floor. Imagine lights being off. Ballers, having to take baths in bottles of water. Imagine it. And you make it out just to leave us behind.
As authorities continued to emphasize that Nathan Murray Smith's disappearance was being treated as a welfare and mental health concern, public speculation moved in a far more unsettling direction. Online conversations began framing the situation through the familiar and dangerous lens of hip-hop conflict. Despite the absence of evidence suggesting criminal activity, the narrative of ops and inherited enemies quickly attached itself to the story. This reaction did not emerge from facts, but from decades of cultural conditioning within rap history, where the children of famous artists are too often viewed as extensions of their parents' battles. Nathan himself stood far outside that world. Compared to his father's global fame, he lived a relatively low-profile life as a DJ and producer. His public presence reflected stability rather than chaos. His social media showed family moments, music updates, and positive career milestones. There were no public feuds, no online disputes, no trace of industry drama. Every available record confirms that Nathan had no rivals, no enemies, and no history of personal conflict. By all official accounts, his disappearance is not linked to violence, retaliation, or criminal intent. Yet the chilling effect surrounding the circulating footage of Nathan speaking lovingly about his father reveals something deeper and more troubling. The unease does not come from what Nathan said, but from how audiences have been trained to interpret such moments after tragedy. In hip-hop culture, the line between personal life and public warfare has eroded over time. Children, who once existed beyond the boundaries of rap rivalries, have increasingly been pulled into the crossfire, whether symbolically or directly. History offers painful examples. High-profile feuds have repeatedly crossed moral boundaries by invoking family members, particularly children, as tools of humiliation and leverage. These moments reshaped audience expectations, creating an environment where the mere mention of a rapper's child in a crisis automatically triggers suspicion of foul play. Even when law enforcement rules it out, the public reflex persists. This is why Nathan's name trending alongside words like ops feels so disturbing. Not because it reflects reality, but because it exposes a cultural failure. The pattern has taught people to search for villains even when none exist, to assume inherited danger simply because of lineage. The absence of evidence becomes irrelevant in the face of collective memory shaped by past betrayals and publicized cruelty. Crucially, Lil Jon's own career history does not support this narrative. His documented disputes were professional, rooted in business disagreements, creative differences, and label politics. None escalated into violence or threats against family members. When confronted with diss tracks or criticism, Lil Jon consistently chose silence and distance rather than retaliation. His approach stood in contrast to the more volatile paths taken by others in the industry. In recent years, Lil Jon publicly shifted his focus away from competition and excess toward health, healing, and family. He spoke openly about therapy, sobriety, fitness, and personal growth. He framed these changes around his desire to be present for his children, including Nathan. This context makes the current situation even more heartbreaking. A father who rebuilt his life around wellness now faces every parent's worst nightmare, not knowing where his child is. In the final moments of the Boss Talk TV broadcast, the host stripped away speculation and brought the focus back to what truly matters. This is not a story about beefs, rivalries, or hidden enemies. It is a story about a missing son, a grieving family, and a culture that too often prioritizes theories over compassion. The real tragedy lies not in imagined conflicts, but in the silence left behind when a young man walks out one morning and does not return.
So you don't care if y'all ever talk again, speak again?
It wasn't gonna happen anyway, that's what I'm telling you. Yeah. But nah, it ain't. It's over with for that. We might as well not even say we siblings no more, to be honest. It went too far. But it got to that breaking point because of it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody looked at me to be the monster because it got to that.
And this is where the entire situation turns from messy internet drama into something genuinely heartbreaking. Because when you strip away the viral clips, the Instagram stories, the TMZ headlines, and the nonstop commentary, what's left is a family that came up together through real hardship and is now fractured in a way that might never be fully repaired. The Woods family didn't start with privilege. They didn't have safety nets, industry connections, or generational wealth to fall back on. What they had was each other. They were bound by shared struggle, by cramped living conditions, by long nights and short money, by parents doing the best they could to keep the lights on and food on the table. That kind of upbringing forges deep bonds, but it also plants seeds of resentment when one person manages to escape while others remain stuck. That's what makes this situation hit so hard for so many people watching. On a human level, a lot of folks understand the pain Victoria says she feels. Watching someone you grew up sleeping on the floor with turn into a multi-millionaire while you're still fighting eviction notices is not an easy emotional pill to swallow. Envy, hurt, abandonment, and entitlement can blur together until people can't tell where one feeling ends and another begins. For people who've lived through poverty, that emotional conflict feels very real. But here's the part that shifts the balance. Once the family business got taken public, once names, accusations, police reports, and private financial details were dragged into the spotlight, the damage became permanent. You can apologize behind closed doors. You can work through issues in therapy. But you can't undo millions of strangers forming opinions about your family based on viral clips and partial information. That toothpaste really doesn't go back in the tube. Taking family grievances to TMZ changes everything. It turns private pain into public spectacle. It invites commentary from people who have no emotional stake, no context, and no consequences. And once that door is opened, the internet doesn't show mercy. It picks sides. It simplifies complex situations into heroes and villains. And it keeps receipts forever. For GloRilla, this wasn't just about money or public image, it was about survival. Her career, her safety, and her peace of mind were all on the line. The resurfacing of past allegations, especially involving violence, reframed the entire conflict. At that point, it stopped being a debate about who owes who and became a question of boundaries and protection. Many people watching realized that cutting someone off isn't always cold-hearted, sometimes it's necessary. Meanwhile, Victoria's decision to keep escalating, responding to criticism with more lives, more insults, and more public callouts, only deepened the divide. Each response hardened public opinion. Each new post made reconciliation feel less likely. Even people who initially sympathized with her struggle began questioning her motives, once the situation kept spiraling instead of cooling down. What makes Part 9 especially painful is the sense of finality. This doesn't feel like a temporary fallout that blows over with time. This feels like a family line permanently crossed. Relationships with siblings strained beyond repair. A mother caught in the middle, forced to choose peace over public loyalty. And a younger generation watching all of it unfold online, learning in real time how fame can magnify family wounds instead of healing them. At its core, this part of the story isn't really about GloRilla or Victoria alone. It's about what money does to relationships that were already fragile. It's about how fame exposes unresolved trauma instead of erasing it. And it's about the brutal truth that sometimes making it out of the mud doesn't mean everyone can come with you, especially when trust has already been broken. Part 9 leaves us sitting with an uncomfortable reality. Not every family story has a clean resolution. Some end in silence, distance, and unanswered questions. And once the internet gets involved, those endings become even harder to escape.
Is it true that you were homeschooled until the 5th grade?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because my mama wanted us to, she didn't want us to be of the world. That's what she used to say. She wanted to keep us like, my mama was like, she a super Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, she didn't want us to be in the world, I guess.
A super Christian?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a regular Christian and a super
like
Christian?
my mama, my mama go to church as many times the church open, my mama there. If she could be there 7 days a week, she gonna be there.
Now, to truly understand the depth of this family saga, you have to understand who GloRilla is, where she came from, and every single obstacle she had to face on her journey to success. Because this isn't just a story about sibling rivalry, it's about survival, resilience, and navigating a world stacked against you from the very beginning. GloRilla, born Gloria Hallelujah Woods in 1999, grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, as the 8th of 10 children. Her childhood was defined by the kind of struggle that would break most people, a reality that was compounded by the crowded, often harsh environment of the Fraser neighborhood, a part of the city notorious for limited opportunities and deep systemic poverty. Her mother worked tirelessly at FedEx for over 2 decades, grinding every single day to provide for her enormous family. Her father held a variety of jobs before retiring, and yet, even with both parents hustling, resources were tight. The kids were raised with strict Christian values, a discipline structure that included homeschooling all the way up until 5th grade, a reflection of their mother's desire to shield them from the dangers and distractions of the outside world too early. Growing up in that environment forged GloRilla into someone who knew the value of hard work, perseverance, and staying focused on goals even when the world seemed stacked against her. Her life changed dramatically in 2022 when the track FNF, Let's Go unexpectedly blew up online, propelling her into the national spotlight and catching the attention of Yo Gotti's collective music group. Signing with the label was a pivotal moment, effectively transforming her from a local Memphis artist grinding in relative obscurity into a nationally recognized rap sensation. From that point, her career trajectory skyrocketed. She collaborated with megastars like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, racked up a Grammy nomination for Best Rap Performance, and by 2026, she was estimated to have amassed between 5 and 10 million. What's more remarkable is that she consistently looked out for her family as she rose to fame. GloRilla blessed her father with a Jaguar upon his retirement, gifted her mother $500,000 and a Mercedes-Benz, and even relocated some of her siblings to Atlanta, providing them with housing and the tools to pursue their own careers. This wasn't just generosity, it was a strategic effort to elevate those who had supported her from day one, to break cycles of poverty, and to create real opportunities for the next generation in her family. However, her road to success was far from smooth. March 2023 marked one of the darkest moments tied to her career. A deadly stampede erupted at a concert with Finesse 2 times in Rochester, New York. A false rumor of gunshots caused mass panic, resulting in 3 fatalities and multiple serious injuries. Though the tragedy was not GloRilla's fault, the public backlash and legal fallout were immense. In addition, she faced criticism in August 2024 for using an ableist term in a song snippet, which she quickly addressed, showing her responsiveness, but also highlighting the constant scrutiny that comes with fame. In July 2025, her Atlanta home was broken into while she was away performing, and despite the intruders fleeing, police quickly targeted her with felony drug possession charges for marijuana found in her master bedroom. She posted bond and fought back legally, pointing out how law enforcement prioritized a trivial drug case over investigating the burglary where over $700,000 in valuables were stolen. These experiences revealed not only the challenges of being a Black celebrity navigating law enforcement and systemic bias, but also the constant vigilance required to protect herself and her family. Meanwhile, GloRilla continued to face industry controversies, including a 2024 copyright lawsuit over alleged sampling in Wannabe and its remix, involving high-profile collaborators. Then came a 2025 leaked jail call from Young Thug, where reckless comments about her appearance circulated, prompting GloRilla to respond with a diss track that sparked broader conversations about misogyny in hip-hop. Through all of this, GloRilla's resilience has been remarkable. She navigated every obstacle, industry pitfalls, legal battles, public scrutiny, and personal family disputes, without losing focus on her career and legacy. Every challenge she overcame reinforced her commitment to her family and her determination to keep building while maintaining her integrity. Her story is a testament to endurance, hustle, and the harsh realities of growing up in poverty while climbing to stardom, which contextualizes the explosive family conflict that would later dominate the headlines.
I'm the one started rapping first. She followed after me. She just pushed through with it.
What made you not want to pursue it?
Because, like, I never got to a studio. I
You
was
never
the
got
one
what?
my mama would find in the rap books and stuff. I was the one rapping first. She wanted to rap after me. But the only thing about it, she